Hey, what's up? Just gonna review another Fuji lens. I don't like to review anything unless I have it in hand. I have tested all of the Fuji lenses approximately 2.5 months ago. Well, actually, no, 2 months ago, because the last lens that I reviewed by Fuji turned out to be their absolute best lens that they have, which is the 16mm. I've been asked this question before, and I only knew that there were only two lenses that I would get possibly if I found a really killer deal on them, and that would be the last two Fuji lenses, other than the ones that they have coming out that obviously nobody's tested yet, and I haven't tested yet. And that was the 18-135, which is a great mid-range zoom lens, and I did find one of those really cheap. And the other lens, I found one incredibly cheap from Oregon that I picked up, and that's one of my favorite focal lengths. It's the 60mm macro. Now it's only 0.5 magnification, so it's not 1:1. The question also remains, how do you compare that, since they're so close in focal length, with the 56mm portraiture, and I'll get to that in a second. You got 10 elements and 9 groups here on the 60mm. It's 5.78 ounces, I believe. It does come with this incredibly heavy metal, by the way. I think it's the only metal one from Fuji. I believe that's the case. I can't remember any other metal lens hood from Fuji. The base is plastic, but the actual hood is very large and heavy, and it's actually metal. It is an incredible lens. It actually does have better bokeh at f2.8 and higher. Although this is a 2.4 lens, f2.8 and higher than the Fuji 56mm portraiture lens. Obviously this is an incredible beast, but it's basically twice as much money. f1.2 speed demon, roughly 85mm equivalent, the portraiture lens for Fuji. The Fuji 60mm, and it should be no surprise to anybody that's owned or tested a lot of lenses, it has better micro contrast than does the 56mm. This yields softer, creamy results. It's perfect for portraiture. Excellent lens, very heavy, very expensive, basically twice as much money as the Fuji 60mm. This lens from Fuji is 2.5 years older than the 56mm, so it is a faster lens as far as autofocus. The no macro lens is fast when it comes to autofocus if you're doing macro work with this lens. Even, however, as is the case if you were to use both these lenses in portraiture, this one's a little bit slower than the 56mm. But since you're not talking about sports or action, autofocus speed is almost completely irrelevant in portraiture unless you're talking about special type of portraiture. I do love this lens a lot, and I never would have bought it at its current price. I did want it, but I finally found one in great shape from Oregon, really cheap, and so I snagged one. And so that was the second of two lenses that I knew that I wanted from Fuji that didn't make the top cut, since I was able to test them all, the 18-135, and secondarily the Fuji 60mm here. Should you get one at its current price? I really can't give it that sort of recommendation. I think it is an incredible lens, and I do love lenses that serve a dual or higher purpose, just as one of the top lenses that I recommended is the 60mm 2.8 D series autofocus macro Nikkor, which is a portrait lens. It's a macro lens, it's a reproduction lens, it's a normal lens, both on FX and DX, so it's the Swiss Army knife of lenses, and this really kind of is Fuji's Swiss Army knife lens. And I typically find these for about $290, $320 used, and that really is actually a good value. Even though the autofocus speed isn't incredible, and it is a bit of an old lens and it's getting a little long in the tooth, it is worth every bit of the $320. So can I give this a recommendation on a scale of 1 to 10? Yeah, the answer is 7.5 to 8 if you find one cheap enough. I would not buy one new at its current price, which is rather steep. I like to always find a nice used mint one. I do love the really nice lens hood. However, I actually would have preferred it in plastic, as this lens hood is actually incredibly heavy. But I was happy to test it 3 months ago when I got use of it for a couple days. I was like, yeah, it's not an absolute must-have lens, but it's certainly one worth having. Check out the Flickr for the Fuji 60mm f2.4, and if you're making a decision between these two, and you're working off a budget, and you basically used cost between these two, you're looking at twice as much in the Fuji 56mm f1.2 here. Can I recommend it for that additional $400 or $500 depending on what you're able to snag it for? And the answer is basically no. I did consider this a must-have lens, so why did I buy it versus the Fuji 60mm? Depth of field. And the creamy results that it gives, it is a perfect little portraiture lens. Would I rather be using Or, you know, I certainly got more than a few of them. The Zeiss 85mm f1.4 with a Metabones adapter. If you already have those lenses, you know, for Canon or Nikon, adapting that over is a perfect ideal choice. Obviously, it's manual focus only. Both of them actually yield different results. The Zeiss 85mm f1.4 that I use and love so dearly, an expensive lens, current price is $1,300 on it. Typically used, you can find them for about $850. Everybody that bought the Zeiss 85mm from my recommendation is incredibly happy. You can find them for about $850 used from Japan. That actually is a superior recommendation as long as you don't mind the fact of using a manual focus lens. But when it comes to portraiture, it's no big deal, especially with focus peaking on the Fuji. That makes it an excellent lens to use with a Metabones adapter. It's one of my favorite lenses. But having this as an autofocus lens, 56mm, I did get a deal on it when Fuji was having the sale at the end of the year, last year 2015, so I was able to get, I think, $200 off on the lens, so it broke the mark at, you know, a scale of 8 plus out of a 10. Not greatly more so than the Fuji 60mm. That was why this was on my secondary list of 2 lenses to get, and it is an incredible lens. I'm glad I purchased it, and I grabbed it for $310 with free shipping on this lens, and that's typically what its going price is, and that's certainly a lot cheaper than a new one costs if you get one from B&H Photo or somebody else new. It is made in Japan. It is all metal. It does have an aperture ring. And I actually consider this the best choice if you are on a slight budget. I mean, would I rather have this and one other Fuji lens rather than just this one 56mm Fuji? Yes, I actually would. It's like, well, what about depth of field concerns? Well, that's subjective, and that's something you need to weigh yourself. Obviously, getting that creamy, shallow, you know, razor thin depth of field on the 56mm f1.2 obviously, you know, is unmatched. Fuji's got nothing else like it. But, you know, being completely pragmatic and down to earth, I mean, is this a perfect all-around lens? I love the lenses, like I said, that serve multiple purposes. For macro, portraiture, and even as a normal lens. Well, it's not a normal lens, it's equivalent of a 90mm. To me, all 60mm are normal lenses. I'm always thinking of full-frame cameras. This is a normal prime lens to me. Obviously, it's a telephoto on a DX crop sensor, but this is a better choice. You're getting 3 lenses in one out of this one, or really this one. You know, you're stretching it stretching it to say this is a dual-purpose lens. I mean, yeah, it's okay, it's a portraiture lens, but what else? Not a whole lot else, and it's a lot more money. But you know, you're getting what you're paying for that depth of field. You're paying for that fast-speed lens. Like I said, the bokeh actually at f2.8 is better on the 60mm Fuji than it is on the 56mm f1.2 at 2.8 and above. This has better micro contrast than the Fuji's 56mm. It is very slightly sharper of a lens, so that's something to consider. Also, it weighs a lot less until you factor in this extremely heavy lens hood that it comes with, but that isn't an issue. They make little tiny 39mm metal lens hoods that screw onto this. That I love those things from China. I buy the heck out of them for all my lenses. They're very well made, and one of the few things that's mass-produced in China that I actually like. It's high quality. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is a video review of the Fuji 60mm f2.4 made in Japan, and comparing and contrasting it with its expensive cousin, which is roughly the same focal length, the Fuji 56mm f1.2, and just things to consider. As long as you make a wise, intelligent, educated choice on what you get, you know you'll have spent your money wisely. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye.